My name is Emma Mitchell. I'm 28 years old, and last night, I watched myself on national television explaining how a nearly invisible species of seahorse could change the future of marine conservation. This morning, my sister called me from a new number, pitching an eco-friendly skincare line that, in her words, would totally blow up if I just lent a little scientific credibility. I blocked her. But that's not the part that hurt. What hurt was hearing my dad's voice on the voicemail before hers, cracking for the first time in my life, saying, "Princess, we didn't know your work was that important." That's when I knew I had to tell this story. Because for years, I let people call me the steady one, the boring one, the backup plan. And I stayed quiet. Not anymore. If you've ever been overlooked, underestimated, or used this story is for you. Hit that like button, subscribe, and drop A in the comments if you've ever chosen yourself for once. Let's start at the moment I finally said no and everything exploded. It was a Sunday morning in early spring. Missouri was still clinging to the last patches of frost, and the Mitchell household kitchen smelled like reheated coffee and cinnamon rolls no one had touched. I stood by the sink, fingers gripping the edge of the counter. I wasn't cold, but my body trembled. "You're being completely selfish, Emma." My mother's voice cut through the room like a cracked porcelain plate, shards and all. Across the room, Olivia perfumed Olivia was sitting cross-legged on the kitchen island like it was a throne, gesturing with her freshly done nails. "It's not like you even use that money. You live like a nun, Emma. This is a real chance. A luxury spa. Downtown. I already found influencers who'd partner. You could be part of something big for once." I didn't respond. Because I had, many times. I'd explained how I saved that money. Late nights in grad school. No takeout. 2 jobs. No vacations. I'd watched my friends travel to Greece. Get married. Buy condos while I packed rice and fish into Tupperware and ran pH tests in a windowless lab. All for a career that paid in grants and late praise. "Emma," my father spoke, voice low but firm. "You've always been the practical one. That's not a bad thing. But your sister, she's the visionary. She takes risks. You're the steady hand. You'll be fine. You'll earn it back." He meant it as comfort, but in our family, steady was a polite word for forgettable. I looked at each of them. My mother, who only praised me when I drove Olivia to auditions. My father, who came to every pop-up shop Olivia ever hosted but had never once asked what kind of research I did. And Olivia, whose failed fashion boutique, juice bar, and influencer agency had swallowed thousands from my parents and somehow always landed her softer than anyone deserved. "I have $127,000 in my account," I said evenly, "and she wants all of it. Every penny." Olivia threw up her hands. "It's an investment, Emma. You'd be a partner. Think bigger for once in your life." "I am thinking big," I said, voice steady. My fingers curled around the locket at my neck glass, with a tiny metal seahorse floating inside. A gift I bought myself when I published my first paper. No one in this kitchen had noticed it. My mother's face hardened. "After all we've done for you." And there it was, the line I'd feared and resented since childhood. I'd paid rent when Dad's hours were cut, helped Olivia pay for 2 courses she never finished, covered Mom's dental surgery when the insurance lapsed. But none of that mattered. Not when I said no. Olivia narrowed her eyes. "You've always been jealous of me." I blinked. Jealous. Her smile was all teeth. "You hide behind your books and your test tubes, but deep down, you wish you had my life. Attention, excitement, purpose." I felt something in me snap. It didn't scream. It didn't rage. It went silent. "I'm done," I said. I turned and walked out, ignoring the gasps and footsteps behind me. Upstairs, I grabbed my bag already packed. I'd known this moment was coming. Olivia had been laying it on thick for weeks. I had read the signs, the way someone reads cloud formations before a storm. This wasn't my first time being guilted. It would be the last. On the way out, my mother yelled after me,
"Emma Grace Mitchell, don't you dare walk out that door."
I paused at the bottom of the stairs, turned to face them. "You know what's funny," I said. "None of you ever asked what my plans were for that money. Not once."
Olivia scoffed, "Because your plans probably involve seaweed and lab coats."
I didn't answer. I just smiled and walked out. The screen door slammed behind me like punctuation. Inside the car, I exhaled for the first time all morning. The highway stretched ahead, familiar but open. California was 3,000 miles away. So was my new job leading a marine conservation program for a world-class research institute. They'd offered housing near the coast, a generous salary, and for the first time in my life, respect. As I drove, my phone buzzed, over and over. Calls, voicemails, Olivia, Mom, Dad. I pulled over, opened my notes app, and wrote something I'd never said out loud. If you don't choose you today, when will you? Then I opened Gmail. Subject line, to myself, read when it hurts. I typed the message. Then I hit send. The email flew into the cloud like a prayer. That night, I boarded a flight with one carry-on, my laptop, and a necklace with a tiny seahorse pressed against my collarbone. I didn't know what tomorrow held. But I knew who I wasn't anymore. I wasn't the family ATM. I wasn't the steady one holding broken dreams together. I wasn't waiting to be asked what I wanted. I had a life to build. And the Pacific was calling. 3 months before I walked out of that kitchen, I was in a wetsuit, ankle deep in seawater, tagging baby seahorses. That moment's sunlight bouncing off the tide, the salt drying on my lips felt more like home than my actual house ever had. But back then, it was just a fellowship, a temporary research grant in California, thousands of miles from Missouri, and everything that defined me. I was still deciding if I had the courage to stay. Growing up, our house was spotless. Mom said clutter was emotional decay. But the emotional mess we lived in, that was fine, as long as no one raised their voice. I learned early how to disappear. While Olivia demanded piano lessons, ballet shoes, a camera for her lifestyle channel, I asked for used textbooks and walked to school. She was the dreamer. I was the designated driver. And when her dreams crashed, it was my job to make sure the family didn't go down with them. Dad called it being supportive. Mom said I was blessed with stability. But what they really meant was, you don't need help. She does. Olivia dropped out of 2 colleges, started 3 businesses. Each time, my parents bailed her out. Each time, I told myself, it's just money. She's your sister. But it wasn't just money. It was blood, sweat, and stolen sleep. The final straw, that luxury wellness spa pitch. She showed me the Pinterest board before she even had a lease. "It's not just a spa," she said, flipping through mock-ups like a CEO. "It's a whole vibe. Think bamboo walls, white robes, detox juice with lavender foam. You could do the science-y part. Maybe research sea minerals or whatever." She said science-y like it was a disease. I'd just come back from presenting at a small marine biology conference. No one in my family had asked how it went. One night, about 2 weeks before I left, I stayed up writing grant proposals while the house shook from Olivia's spa planning party downstairs. I heard her laugh echo off the tile floor. Heard Dad mixing margaritas. Mom humming along to her playlist. I closed my laptop, stepped out of my room. Olivia was standing in the dining room, sketching business logos on the back of our utility bill. Dad saw me and said, "There she is, Olivia, just had a brilliant idea. She's thinking of calling the spa Glow House. Catchy, right?" I nodded, too tired to argue. I just found out my fellowship was being extended, an opportunity to stay in California for another year. Maybe longer. but no one knew. No one had asked. And I'd stopped offering.
The next morning, Mom knocked on my door with a favor.
Olivia has a meeting with a potential investor, she said, twisting her hands. She needs to borrow your laptop. Hers got, well, she spilled something on it again. I stared at her. She wants to pitch a luxury spa, using my laptop. Well, you don't really use it for much besides research, right? That was the moment I started packing in my head. Back in California, everything smelled like possibility. The Pacific didn't ask me to explain myself. At the Institute, I wasn't the responsible daughter or the one who always helps. I was Dr. Mitchell, the woman whose preliminary work on seahorse breeding patterns had stunned the director. Dr. Martinez was the first person in years who listened when I spoke and remembered what I said. She had sharp eyes and a voice like silk wrapped around iron. She took me aside after one of our morning dives and said, "You know, Emma, you don't have to play small just because others do." I didn't respond, but I felt something flicker inside me. That night, in my little rented apartment near the coast, I pulled out the necklace I'd hidden in the bottom drawer of my suitcase. A tiny seahorse floating inside clear glass. I'd bought it 2 years ago, at a science museum gift shop, the day I published my first peer-reviewed paper. No one had celebrated with me, so I bought myself something small and steady. Just like me. I held it to the light and whispered, "You're not invisible. They just refuse to see you." The messages from home started piling up. At first, I skimmed them. Then I let them sit unread. Mom's voice, "Your father's blood pressure is acting up. This stress isn't good for him." Dad's text, "We're not mad, just disappointed. Please reconsider. Your sister really needs this." Olivia. Wow, ignoring your own family now. Whatever, I'll get a loan. You're seriously going to waste your life tagging fish while I try to save our family's future? I didn't reply. Instead, I started waking up early, walking the beach barefoot, watching the water shift colors under the morning sun, breathing. And for the first time in my adult life, I wasn't planning my week around anyone else's crisis. Then came the magazine. Dr. Martinez burst into my office, holding up a mock-up of National Geographic. The headline read, "Secrets Beneath the Waves, One Scientist's Fight to Save the Seahorse." My name was printed in bold just beneath it. I blinked. Is this real? Real enough that your face is going to be in every airport bookstore next month. My fingers went cold. Not from fear, but from shock. After all those years of being invisible suddenly, the world saw me. I brought the necklace out again that night, set it beside my laptop, and reread the email I'd sent myself months ago. "If you don't choose you today, when will you?" My eyes burned, but I didn't cry. Because I wasn't sad. I didn't answer Olivia's voicemail. Not the first one. Not the second. Not the text that followed a day later, saying, "At least congratulate me. I'm trying again. Emma. It's an eco-friendly beauty brand this time. With your name attached, it could be huge." I left her on read, but like every storm that forms off the coast, I could feel her brewing. The documentary trailer dropped 2 days later. It was a 90-second teaser, featuring aerial shots of our research vessels, underwater footage of our team releasing juvenile seahorses, and a brief glimpse of me in my diving gear, explaining the reproductive behavior of Hippocampus zosteri, our Gulf-dwelling seahorse population. That night, my inbox exploded. Scientists, journalists, high school teachers asking if I'd speak to their students. And then, the family came. My uncle from Florida messaged me. Didn't know we had a star in the family. A cousin I hadn't heard from in 7 years. Your mom sent the link. Congrats, Olivia must be so proud. Proud. My sister was spiraling. 2 mornings later, I walked into the lab to find Dr. Martinez
waiting with a smirk and a coffee in each hand. "Guess who called the front desk today?"
I blinked. Please tell me it wasn't who I think it was.
"Your sister," she confirmed, handing me a latte. She said she has years of experience running companies and asked if we had any open leadership positions, especially something public-facing. She specifically mentioned wanting to be in the documentary. I nearly choked on my coffee. "What did you say?" I told her we're fully staffed with degreed marine biologists and field researchers, and that media access is reserved for trained personnel.
And she hung up. We both laughed, but inside, something tightened. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. That afternoon, a bouquet of lilies showed up at the lab. No card, just a printed note. "Let's stop being enemies. Let's build something new." I didn't need a signature. Only Olivia would send apology flowers while plotting her next PR play. I left the bouquet on the break room table. By the end of the day, someone had thrown it out. But the real blow came that weekend. The documentary premiered in prime time. Millions of people tuned in. There I was on screen, in the field, laughing with my team, handling tiny creatures with gloved hands and steady breath. I spoke clearly, confidently, passionately. Even I barely recognized myself. It was the first time the world saw me not as someone's sister, or daughter, or fallback, but as Emma Mitchell, Ph.D. On Monday morning, my phone had 8 voicemails. The first 7 were variations of the same chorus. "Mom, sweetheart, you were radiant. Why didn't you tell us it was airing? Dad, princess, the dean of my golf club called me, said you were extraordinary.
Aunt Lena, we're hosting a viewing party for episode 2.
But the last message, that one hit different. Olivia's voice was softer, no ego, just static and strain. "Mom, I watched it. You looked really good on camera, like you belonged. I was thinking maybe we could merge ideas. You do marine science. I do skincare, like seaweed serum or something. And I know I messed things up, but I need this. Please, just call me."
I didn't call.
Instead, I opened the email I'd written to myself the night I left home, reread the line, "If you don't choose you today, when will you?" And I whispered it out loud, just to be sure I still meant it. I did. Later that week, Dr. Martinez pulled me aside again. "There's something else," she said, eyes gleaming. "The International Marine Biology Conference just called. They want you to keynote the closing session." I froze. Me. They were blown away by the documentary. Said your clarity, your conviction it was the perfect blend of science and story. I sat down. Then she added, "It comes with an honorarium, 5 figures. My mouth went dry. "That's more than Olivia asked for." Martinez raised an eyebrow. "Let me guess. She knows." "She will soon." Sure enough, the next day Olivia posted a cryptic story to her followers. A selfie, red eyes, a caption that read, "Some sisters get everything handed to them. Must be nice." I almost replied, but I didn't, because the truth was I hadn't been handed anything. I earned every grant, every sleepless night, every moment I bit my tongue while someone else's dream was funded before my own. What Olivia didn't realize, she'd never really failed. She just never finished. Then came the media requests. A morning show wanted me for a live interview. A national science podcast sent over questions. A kids' book publisher asked if I'd write something about marine life for girls ages 8 to 12. And somewhere in the middle of all that, I got a text. From Mom. "Olivia's not eating, not sleeping. She's really struggling. Maybe you could reach out." Followed by another. "Also, Dad said your TV appearance could help boost her brand. She has this new ocean-based line wants to pitch to investors next week." I stared at the screen. My own mother had turned my life's work into a marketing asset for my sister's next attempt. I didn't reply. That night, I walked the shoreline alone. The moon was low, the tide warm and slow against my feet. I took off my seahorse necklace and held it up to the sky. It glinted. Delicate, quiet, unapologetically itself. For years, I'd treated silence like a survival skill. But now, it felt like a weapon. A gentle, steady rebellion against every voice that ever told me I was less than. I sat in the corner of my office with the letter in my lap, fingers still trembling. Global distribution, a featured segment on my personal journey. Not just the science. Me. The girl who was never interesting enough, not loud enough, not dramatic enough. Now, my story, the quiet, steady one, was the one they wanted to tell. I pressed my palm flat over the necklace on my chest. The tiny glass seahorse stayed cool against my skin, like it had been waiting with me all this time. That night, I didn't sleep. I watched the ocean from my balcony as the waves rolled in like clockwork. Even in chaos, the sea had rhythm. But I couldn't ignore the storm building back home. Mom's texts were no longer subtle. Olivia's trying so hard. Emma, can't you be the bigger person? She just needs a platform. She said your producers might feature her skincare in the last episode. I almost dropped my phone. That's when it hit me. This wasn't about reconciliation. It was positioning. So I started planning, not out of revenge, out of self-preservation. For the first time, I had a platform and people who actually saw me. I wasn't about to let my story be rewritten by the same voices that erased it for so long. This wasn't a sisterly feud. This was PR warfare. And Olivia always played dirty. The next morning, I asked Dr. Martinez if I could speak with the documentary crew privately. They met me near the dock, just after sunrise, sipping coffee from paper cups. Birds wheeled over the bay as I stepped into the salt air with my notepad in hand.
I'm grateful for the opportunity, I said, but if this project is expanding to include my personal story, I want to make one thing clear.
The producer raised an eyebrow. Go on. I will not participate in any segment that includes my family unless it's on my terms. He nodded slowly. We figured there was history. She's going to try to get to you, I added. Probably already has. My sister. She knows how to spin failure into a feature. The producer exchanged a look with his assistant.
She reached out yesterday, he admitted. Claimed she had key emotional context on your journey.
I laughed bitterly. She does. She's the reason I left home.
That night, I opened a blank document. And I wrote everything. Every time my parents asked for money but not my opinion, every business venture they celebrated while ignoring my milestones, every text I received only when Olivia needed funding, or sympathy, or both. And then I wrote about the seahorses.
How I'd watched their numbers drop year after year. How it paralleled what I felt like something beautiful, crucial, being erased because it wasn't loud enough to be seen. I ended the document with a quote I had once read in a dusty marine biology journal. Some creatures don't fight with claws or teeth. They survive by being steady, unshaken by current or tide.
I titled the file Episode 0, The Story They Never Asked For. A week later, the conference confirmed.
I would be the closing keynote speaker at the International Marine Biology Summit in Vancouver. Flights and hotel were covered, and the honorarium. Let's just say it made Olivia's spa funding request look like pocket change. I could almost hear the phone ringing before I got the call. Dad's voice came through low, controlled. Princess Yargarta, your mother and I were thinking, maybe we should come up for the conference. I paused. Why? To support you. Olivia says she's willing to apologize. And if this keynote opens up business exposure... Stop, I said, and my voice didn't shake. I'm not your marketing plan, Dad, and I'm not her safety net anymore. That same evening, I received an email from an old friend, Jasmine, a biochemist I hadn't seen since grad school. She'd watched the documentary and reached out with something unexpected. "I know you're not in that world anymore, but you should see this. Olivia's pitching a C-enzyme anti-aging line. She mentioned a research sister backing the formula. Is that you?" She included a screenshot. There was Olivia, fresh blowout, ring light in full effect, claiming scientific validation behind her new product line. Using my name, my credentials. I felt like someone had poured ice water down my spine. The next morning, I walked straight into Dr. Martinez's office. "I need to file a formal request," I said. "I want to change my emergency contact. Remove all family members." She didn't ask why. She just nodded and handed me the form. "Consider it done." When I walked out of her office, I felt lighter. Like a weight I hadn't realized I was still carrying had finally dropped. On the beach that evening, I opened my email again and reread my message from months ago. "If you don't choose you today, when will you?" I hit forward, added a new subject line, "Still choosing." And then I added something new. "They only see you when they need you. But you've always been there watching, building, growing. Quiet isn't weak. It's deliberate. This is your story, not theirs." The next 48 hours felt like a war I didn't declare, but one I damn sure wasn't going to lose. I didn't sleep much. Instead, I sat with my laptop in my lap, the ocean breeze sneaking in through the cracked balcony door. And I rewrote my story. Not the data, not the research, but me. The girl in the shadows, the stable one, the boring daughter, the woman who learned that when you're too useful, people don't see you as a person, they see you as a resource. Not anymore. The first thing I did was contact the documentary producer. "I want to narrate my segment myself," I said. "Not a voiceover artist. Me." He hesitated. "That's not usually—" "I know, but it's my life, my voice. If Olivia's going to spin a version, I need to ground the audience in the truth before she gets the chance." He nodded. "You've earned that." We scheduled a private recording session at the studio trailer near the lab. That night, I wrote out every line I planned to say. I didn't dramatize it. I didn't slander her. I simply told the truth. Sometimes, when people call you steady, what they mean is that you're expected to carry the weight they refuse to touch. Sometimes, the people closest to you only applaud when you help them climb. I used to think being quiet made me weak. Now I know it made me unstoppable. The morning of the session, I wore a simple white shirt, my seahorse necklace visible just below the collar. I kept my voice low, calm, like the sea just before dawn. When I finished, the sound tech looked at me and said that was personal. It needed to be. I left the studio and walked straight to the dock where our research vessel was moored. The crew was prepping for the day's dive camera gear, dive logs, oxygen checks. But I had a different mission. Dr. Martinez met me near the stern, clipboard in hand. She didn't say anything, just looked at me, reading my face like she could see the fire simmering under my skin. "She's still trying to get in?" she asked. I nodded, told investors we were collaborating, that I was her silent partner in the formulation. Martinez narrowed her eyes. "You want me to say something officially?" "No," I replied. "Let her speak. I'll let the work speak louder." We suited up and descended into the water. That day, we captured the footage we'd been waiting months for, a new pod of Hippocampus zosteri mating for the first time in the protected area I'd designed. 3 generations of seahorses, something never before documented. The camera caught it all. Later that evening, the lead producer knocked on my office door, beaming. "This will be the core of the finale. You leading the expedition, the science, the success, no distractions." He hesitated. Also, we reviewed Olivia's footage. I didn't say anything. She edited herself into old family videos, added B-roll of waves, tried to match our style, said it was a tribute, but it's misleading, manipulative, and completely off-brand. I exhaled for the first time in hours.
"We're not using any of it," he finished. "Her involvement ends here."
But the universe wasn't done testing me. The night before the second episode aired, I got an email from an anonymous account. Subject line: "This might be useful." Inside was a folder of PDFs, screenshots, and an audio file.
At first, I thought it was spam.
Then I opened the audio. It was Olivia on a call with a potential investor bragging that she'd tricked the documentary crew into believing she and her sister were working together. "They're eating it up," she said, voice giddy. "Emma's too soft to call me out. She won't ruin the family image. She never has." My hands were shaking. I forwarded the file to the producer without a word. An hour later, he replied, "Understood. We'll address this in the final episode. You'll have full approval before broadcast." I stared at the email, not because I was surprised, but because for the first time, I realized I had power, real power. Not in a screaming match, not in a social media war, but in truth, backed by facts, by science, by cameras, by a world that was finally listening. I went out to the shore that night, barefoot in the sand, the necklace cold against my chest. I whispered to the sea, "You were always the only one who understood what it meant to survive quietly." Episode 2 aired the next night. It featured my seahorse protection protocols, the tripled population count, and behind-the-scenes moments with my team that felt joyful. But the final 2 minutes, they hit different. There was a tight shot of me on deck at sunrise, wind in my hair, eyes on the horizon. And then my voice, from the narration session. "Sometimes, the people who call you selfish are the ones who've taken the most. Sometimes, loving yourself out loud is the loudest rebellion of all." The screen faded to black. And in the credits, just 3 lines. Research lead doctor, Emma Mitchell, emergency contact, Pacific Conservation Institute. Sister, not available for comment. My phone buzzed all night. Mostly from strangers. Messages like, "I'm the Emma in my family, thank you." That necklace, that moment, I cried. The quiet ones aren't weak. They're just tired of being ignored. But one message stopped me cold. A new number. One line, "You really had to humiliate me on national TV." No name. No emoji. But I knew. Olivia. The legal envelope sat on my desk like a loaded weapon. Heavy, silent, and personal. Cease and desist. From my own sister. Filed in Los Angeles County Court Public Record. Olivia had retained a PR-driven legal firm known for flashy litigation and influencer cases. This wasn't about justice. It was about optics. And she knew exactly where to strike. Not my finances, not my reputation in the lab. She wanted to wound me where I was still raw public trust. The audience. The voice I had just begun to reclaim. I walked out of my office with the document in hand, crossed the lab floor, and stepped into Dr. Martinez's office without knocking. She looked up. Her eyes fell on the envelope. She didn't flinch. "She filed it," she asked flatly. I nodded. "Doctor?" Martinez let out a long breath and gestured to the chair across from her. "I spoke with legal this morning," she said. "Our contracts are airtight. You didn't defame her. You didn't name her." She volunteered herself into the conversation. "But she's going to spin it," I said. "She'll say I weaponized the spotlight, that I made her look unstable." Martinez tapped the folder on her desk. "This kind of attack only works if you respond emotionally. But you're not her, Emma. You have evidence. You have integrity. And now, you have backup." I didn't understand what she meant until that afternoon.
The producer of the documentary called.
"We've reviewed the footage, internal memos, emails, your audio recordings," he said calmly. She's not just trying to smear you, she fabricated credential. What? She claimed co-authorship on a published paper that doesn't exist. Claimed to be part of your research team. Our fact-checkers flagged it all. My heart pounded. I'm sorry, he added, but we've had to escalate this. Our legal team's filing a countersuit for defamation and misrepresentation. For a moment, all I could do was sit on the floor of my apartment. There it was. The moment every quiet kid dreams of the day, someone finally stands up for you without needing you to justify your pain. I didn't feel victorious. I felt emptied. Like all the years I carried their disappointment had suddenly been dumped out of me at once. And, in its place, clarity. The next day, a press statement went live on the documentary's official social media. The producers of Beneath the Waves confirmed that all participants were verified and their contributions to marine conservation independently vetted. Any external claims to collaboration or intellectual contribution without documentation have been denied. The documentary stands by Dr. Emma Mitchell's work and voice. I didn't check Olivia's response. I didn't need to. Instead, I returned to work. We launched the International Seahorse Conservation Initiative the same week, expanded tagging operations across 3 additional marine sites, partnered with 2 new coastal labs. We named one of the protocols the Mitchell Model, a standardized framework for habitat monitoring. My team surprised me with a small plaque for my desk. She didn't just leave home, she built a new one underwater. I stared at it for a long time. Not because I needed the recognition, but because it came from people who saw me fully and chose to honor that. That weekend, the final episode aired. Unlike the previous ones, this one opened with silence. Just the camera panning across the ocean at dawn. Then my voice, from a live interview we'd filmed only days earlier. When people stop seeing you as a person and start seeing you as a tool, sometimes the only thing left to do is vanish. But I didn't vanish. I evolved. The episode featured the backlash, the cease and desist, the countersuit. But it focused on the science, on what we were doing next, on the lives human and marine that were being changed because I chose to stay in my lane and thrive. That night, as I walked along the beach, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. A voicemail. This time, I listened. Olivia's voice was flat. No tears, just fatigue. You win. I guess. They all think you're some kind of saint now. I've got nothing left but my name. And, honestly, I don't even know what that means anymore. But it's fine. Everyone loves a redemption arc, right? She hung up. And for the first time, I didn't feel anger. I felt something else. Grief. Not for her, but for the idea of a sister I never had. 2 days later, an invitation arrived in my inbox. The National Science Foundation wanted to fund a youth outreach program based on my research model. Fully paid, national rollout. They were calling it the Seahorse Project. The promo video would begin filming in 3 weeks. And they wanted me to be the face of it. I smiled, a little stunned. But only a little. Because now, I believed it. I spent that evening packing care kits with the team for the field interns, stenciled quotes on waterproof tags, attached to each bag. Mine read, "The ones who call you selfish are often the ones who've taken the most." As I stapled the tag, my phone lit up again. A text this time. From Mom. "We saw the final episode. You looked happy. Olivia. She's not doing great. Maybe you could reach out." I stared at the screen, then deleted the message without answering. An hour later, as I sat on the balcony writing a thank you note to the NSF, a single notification buzzed at the top of my screen. Anonymous email. Subject: You're welcome. No body text, no signature. Just one attachment. A video file? I clicked play. It was a screen recording someone navigating Olivia's private Instagram account.
And there it was.
Her draft pitch deck, a document she never meant the public to see. On slide 6, my name, fake quotes attributed to me, and a forged signature. And at the bottom corner,
A small watermark.
leaked by someone who's tired of watching good people get used. I leaned back in my chair, pulse steady.
This wasn't just over.
It had just cracked wide open. Someone else was in the game now, and I wasn't sure whose side they were on. The video ended, and I just sat there frozen.
Not from fear, not from rage.
But from clarity. There it was, proof that Olivia had forged my signature, misused my name, and pitched a lie so elaborate it would have buried my credibility if it had worked. And yet, someone had leaked it. Someone who knew what she'd done. Someone who wanted me to see it. I didn't know who sent that email. Still don't. But for the first time in this entire ordeal, I realized I wasn't fighting alone. The producers moved fast. The leaked video was forwarded to their legal team, the NSF, and the conference organizers. Within hours, Olivia's cease and desist was voided. The countersuit moved forward, and her brand, barely launched, was suspended on every platform that mattered. Her investors pulled out, her site went down, and her carefully curated digital empire crumbled in less than 24 hours. I didn't post a word, didn't tweet, didn't subtweet, didn't smile, because I wasn't celebrating her downfall. I was just free. 2 days later, I stood backstage at the International Marine Biology Conference in Vancouver. The room was packed, cameras everywhere, lights bright enough to blur out fear. I wore a fitted black blazer, jeans, and my signature necklace. The little glass seahorse, barely visible against my collarbone, caught the edge of the spotlight and glimmered. I placed my hand over it once before stepping out onto the stage. The applause felt real. Not like the polite clapping you get for being someone's daughter or the one who helped. This was for me. I started my speech with a story. Not about seahorses, but about family. For years, I believed the quiet one had to keep the peace. That saying no made me selfish. That being steady meant being small. But the truth is, silence isn't peace. It's what grows when people confuse usefulness with love. The room was silent. Then I shifted gears: science, community-led conservation, youth programs. I ended with a simple line. Sometimes, the smallest creatures, if given space, reshape an entire ecosystem. When I stepped off the stage, Dr. Martinez was waiting with open arms. "You didn't just deliver a keynote," she said. "You reclaimed your name." That night, I sat in my hotel room, replying to hundreds of messages from students, researchers, and strangers across the country. One from a woman in Detroit stood out. "I was always the one expected to hold things together. My sister got the parties. I got the responsibilities. Watching you speak tonight felt like someone gave me permission to want something for me. Thank you." I cried for the first time in weeks. Not out of sadness, but because she got it. She saw me. The next morning, I wrote a letter. Not to Olivia. Not to my parents. To myself. Subject: read this next time they call you back. Dear Emma, if they come knocking again, if they say Olivia's changed, or it wasn't that bad, remember this. You did everything they said you couldn't. You walked away with nothing but a suitcase, a necklace, and a dream. And you built an entire ecosystem. You weren't cruel. You were clear. That's your power. Don't apologize for using it. Me? I saved it in my inbox under a special folder called Boundaries. And for the first time, I believed it. 2 weeks passed. The Seahorse Initiative received a second wave of funding. The documentary was nominated for a regional Emmy. I got invited to speak at a TEDx event in the fall. And one morning, while diving with my team, we spotted a new mating pair. 2 males, guarding tiny clusters of eggs. a biological anomaly and scientific gold. We filmed it, logged the data, marked the coordinates. But when I surfaced, dripping wet, goggles still on my forehead, Dr. Martinez handed me her phone.
A text message from an unknown number.
All it said was, "I hope it was worth it." No name. But I didn't need one.
I thought I'd be scared. But I wasn't?
Because the difference now. I was no longer flinching in anticipation of the next betrayal. I was expecting it, ready for it, rooted deep enough not to be moved. Like the seagrass where our seahorses nested. Steady, flexible, unbreakable. A month later, the last twist came not from Olivia, but from me.
I was offered a book deal.
A memoir meets science hybrid, telling my story through the lens of marine conservation. My agent asked what I wanted to call it. I didn't hesitate. The Steady One. So if you're watching this, and you've ever been called boring, or selfish, or the backup plan,
Let me tell you something I learned the hard way.
sometimes it's not that they didn't see your light. It's that they were afraid of what it would reveal.
Drop A in the comments if you've ever had to walk away from people you loved to become the person you needed to be.
Hit subscribe for more stories that remind you, quiet doesn't mean invisible, and steady doesn't mean weak.
I'm Emma Mitchell.
They used to say I was too soft, too science-y, too small to be remembered. Now,
The whole world knows my name.
and not because I shouted it, but because I earned it. One silent, steady, seahorse-shaped step at a time.